Nigeria has been largely consumers of technology. By building infrastructure here, we're able to deliver more of that value chain here in Nigeria.
What if we told you that there was a time when Nigeria had no fast internet, no YouTube creators, no booming fintech industry, no TikTok live stream, and no cloud economy? This wasn't fiction. This was the reality of Nigeria in the early 2000s. A country forced to depend on slow, expensive satellites to connect to the rest of the world. Every email, every file, every search had to travel thousands of kilometers into space and back, burning time, money, and opportunities. Until everything changed. One woman saw the urgent need for a change and made the monumental decision to give Nigeria not just access, but its own digital highway, connecting directly to the rest of the world. It was a decision that birthed MainOne, the undersea cable network that gave Nigeria and West Africa the privilege of fast, affordable internet. This network became the essential backbone for everything, from online banking to tech startups and streaming Nollywood on Netflix. All of it made possible because of that one pivotal decision. This is the story of how Nigeria's internet was revolutionized, the battles it took to make it happen, and the woman who made it all possible, Funke Opeke. Born in 1961, Olufunke Olayemi Opeke hailed from Ile-Oluji in Ondo State, though she was born in Ibadan, Oyo State, Nigeria. As one of 9 children, she had parents who set high standards, encouraging her and her siblings to pursue their dreams and explore their talents. Funke attended Queen's School, an all-girls school in Ibadan, before earning her first degree in electrical engineering from the now Obafemi Awolowo University. Shortly after the compulsory 1-year National Youth Service, Funke relocated to the United States to further her education. At the time she left, in the early 80s, Nigeria was undergoing structural adjustment and opportunities were few and far between.
At the time I was leaving, Nigeria was going through some structural adjustment. It was in the early 80s, similar times. The opportunities were few and far between, and I decided to stay on because there were no jobs for me to come back to in Nigeria after my master's degree.
After completing her master's in engineering at Columbia University, she decided to remain in the US to pursue her career, as there didn't appear to be much to return to in Nigeria. Funke went on to build a 20-year telecommunications career in the US, working in startups like SendMail and later becoming an executive director with the wholesale division of Verizon Communications in New York City from 2001 to 2005. After more than 2 decades abroad, opportunities in the telecoms sector began to open up in Nigeria, providing the motivation for her return. She joined MTN, the South African-based mobile network provider that had only been in the country for 5 years and was rapidly expanding, serving as their chief technical officer. Working with MTN gave her a chance to apply the deep knowledge she had gained in the private sector in the US and an opportunity to make a difference in Nigeria and the continent. However, this move came with its own significant challenges. She had moved from an environment with deep institutional knowledge to one where she would need to pioneer innovative methods to deploy existing technologies, all within the demanding context of Nigeria. For someone who had been out of the country for over 20 years, Funke had a difficult time adjusting to the terrain and environment, especially the lack of reliable internet infrastructure, a stark contrast to the advanced connectivity she was used to. In 2006, Funke left MTN and went on to assist with the privatization of Nitel, Nigeria's former monopoly telephone service provider, where she served as the chief operating officer. Seeking to transform the organization from the inside, she soon encountered the depth of corruption that prevented her from making the difference she had envisioned. It was while discussing this frustrating experience with Fola Adiola, whom she had met during the Nitel privatization process, that he suggested she start a business that would reflect the values she wanted to see in the space. This was the turning point. Opeke then decided to employ the skills and experience she had gained to fund her own company, Main Street Technologies, which built MainOne, a submarine cable and connectivity company focused on providing broadband and infrastructure for West Africa. Considering the enormous, non-negotiable cost to put everything in place, a total of $240 million, many thought the idea to be an impossible feat. Yet, Funke was determined. With support from friends and family, she was able to raise $3.2 million, which for her was the most difficult amount of the money she had raised. But it was just over 1.5% of what the project required. The rest of the money came through diligent fundraising. FBN Quest funds put in about $15 million, and she also brought in a consortium of equity investors and development finance institutions, DFIs, including the Pan-African Infrastructure Development Fund, PAYDEF Harith General Partners, the African Development Bank, AFDB, and the African Finance Corporation, AFC, among others. They were eventually able to raise the full $240 million, marking the start of Main Street Technologies and the MainOne Cable Company in 2008. The company landed the first private submarine cable in Africa and quickly started providing services for some of the major telecom companies as well as smaller internet service providers, ISPs. After nearly 4 years of planning, fundraising, and engineering, Funke Opeke's dream became a reality on July 28, 2010. The 7,000-kilometer MainOne submarine cable, stretching from Seychelles, Portugal, to Lagos, Nigeria, with branches landing in Accra, Ghana, and Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, officially went live. The system had a design capacity of 4.96 terabytes per second, making it the highest capacity cable ever built for West Africa at the time. For the first time, internet service providers, telecom operators, banks, and universities could afford high-capacity connections. Companies like MTN Group, Globalcom, Airtel Africa, and Etisalat Nigeria became early customers. By the end of its first full operational year in 2011, MainOne was delivering over 200 gigabytes per second of bandwidth to carriers and ISPs across the region. Despite initial skepticism from some investors who had thought a private company couldn't compete with state-backed cables, the network quickly proved its value. And within 18 months, MainOne had become the largest provider of wholesale bandwidth in Nigeria.
It was the first private submarine cable to be landed in West Africa, served all the major telcos, providing service to MTN, Airtel, Etisalat, and all the smaller ISPs, essentially starting off the data revolution in Nigeria.
After stabilizing the critical submarine link, Opeke pivoted to the next logical step, building terrestrial fiber infrastructure to extend the cable inland. Between 2011 and 2012, MainOne had laid over 300 kilometers of metropolitan fiber in Lagos and partnered with operators in Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire for local distribution. At the same time, the company started selling IP transit and co-location services, setting the stage for future data center ventures. This aggressive expansion quickly paid off. Revenue doubled year on year, and by late 2012, MainOne had achieved cash flow break-even, a rare and significant milestone for a telecom infrastructure startup in Africa. As an organization that prioritized consistent growth, MainOne moved to secure additional capital. In October 2013, it secured a $100 million syndicated loan to refinance its initial build and expand into terrestrial networks and data centers. The facility came from Standard Chartered Bank, First Bank of Nigeria, Sky Bank, and First City Monument Bank, FCMB. This was a critical vote of confidence from Nigerian commercial banks, institutions that had initially been skeptical of funding such a capital-intensive infrastructure project. Armed with this new capital, MainOne accelerated its metro fiber expansion. By late 2014, it had deployed over 600 kilometers of terrestrial fiber across Lagos, connecting key business districts, data hubs, and industrial areas. The company introduced dedicated internet, leased lines, and VPN services for enterprises, strategically moving beyond wholesale only. Customers included Nigerian banks, oil and gas majors, and government ministries, all of whom needed secure, high-bandwidth links. This marked the first real shift from being a pipe under the ocean to becoming an end-to-end connectivity provider.
It is a collective issue for the industry that everyone continues to work on, and we continue to see opportunity, especially at the core, again, where we are building to continue to build out our infrastructure, data centers, networks.
Funke Opeke saw yet another crucial gap: the absence of world-class, carrier-neutral data centers in West Africa. This led to the birth of MainOne's Lagos Data Center, MDXI, Main Data Express International, which was built in Lekki, Lagos, and opened in 2015. The facility was designed as a Tier 3 600 rack capacity site certified by the Uptime Institute. Its construction was financed partly from the 2013 loan facility and partly from reinvested earnings. When MDXI opened in January 2015, it marked a series of breakthroughs in diverse areas. Customers could now host servers locally instead of paying to co-locate in Europe, and latency for services like banking applications, e-commerce, and cloud computing dropped dramatically. Crucially, global firms like Microsoft and Google began to view Nigeria as a viable node in their cloud ecosystems, all thanks to MDXI. Building on its cable landing station in Accra, MainOne launched enterprise services and partnered with local ISPs in Ghana. In 2017, it completed a Tier 3 data center in Apollonia City, Accra, expanding co-location and cloud capacity for Ghanaian businesses. This regional expansion continued in 2018 when MainOne commissioned another Tier 3 data center in Abidjan. Leveraging its cable branch landing there, this effectively gave Francophone West Africa direct access to low-latency hosting and cloud interconnection. To finance these builds, they secured 25 billion naira, approximately $70 million, from a mix of development finance institutions, DFIs, including the African Development Bank, AFDB, Africa Finance Corporation, AFC, and German DFI, DEG. In a move that further cemented its status as a digital gateway, MainOne became the first African partner to provide direct private connections to Microsoft's cloud platform. This allowed banks, fintechs, and enterprises to bypass the public internet for secure, low-latency access to Azure. In that year, by way of recognition, Opeke was named to Forbes' list of world's top 50 women in tech, and MainOne was being referred to as West Africa's digital backbone, powering banks, hospitals, schools, and tech startups. The establishment had, indeed, done more to reduce bandwidth cost in Nigeria than any government initiative. By 2019, MainOne was serving over 10 West African countries either directly or via partners, with connectivity reaching as far as Senegal, Togo, and Cameroon. It also added connectivity for Amazon Web Services (AWS), making it easier for African businesses to adopt cloud computing. With a customer base of over 800 enterprise clients, including most major West African ISPs and mobile operators, its Lagos data center began hosting Google Global Cache and Facebook's Edge servers, dramatically improving streaming and social media speeds in Nigeria. This move solidified MainOne as the gateway for hyperscale cloud and content in the region.
Now you have all the global giants having a presence in Nigeria. Microsoft is in Nigeria, Google is in Nigeria, Facebook is in Nigeria. All these global players, Amazon, are taking interest because they want to participate here.
By 2020, MainOne had firmly established itself as a regional infrastructure giant with a submarine cable, metro fiber, Tier 3 data centers in Nigeria, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire, and direct connections to global cloud platforms. But the next 2 years would test just how essential Funke Opeke's vision truly was. When COVID-19 forced Africa into lockdown, internet traffic surged by more than 40% in a matter of months. Remote work, e-learning, telemedicine, online payments, and video streaming skyrocketed. MainOne's Lagos data center, MDXI, saw utilization climb rapidly as enterprises rush to co-locate servers and adopt cloud solutions. Bandwidth consumption in Nigeria nearly doubled between March and December 2020, with MainOne carrying a significant share of that growth. Funke Opeke described the pandemic as a stress test for Africa's digital infrastructure, and MainOne passed the test. To keep up with the surging demand, MainOne invested heavily in new facilities. In 2020, construction began on a $25 million expansion of MDXI Lekki to increase capacity by 300 racks. And in 2021, the company broke ground on a second Tier 3 data center in Lekki. MainOne also expanded its terrestrial fiber network beyond 1,200 kilometers in Nigeria and new rings around Lagos and Abuja. Things were looking great, and the company's annual revenue rose to $70 to $100 million, with data center services accounting for the fastest growth segment. By late 2021, global players were taking notice. West Africa was one of the fastest growing internet markets in the world, and MainOne had become the gateway for hyperscalers and content providers. Analysts valued MainOne at over $300 million based on its asset, revenues, and strategic position. This interest culminated on December 7, 2021, when the world learned that Equinix Incorporated, the American company that owns and operates more than 240 data centers across 66 global markets, was acquiring MainOne in a deal valued at $320 million.
Equinix brings investment, it brings know-how, it brings relationship with all these global companies, and as well as technology that becomes available not just to global companies coming in, but to local companies who want access to world-class technologies that they have and that they're using to service advanced markets now locally available in Nigeria. And I think this
was a profoundly significant deal because Africa was the only continent Equinix was not yet in. They needed an entry point, and Funke Opeke's MainOne was the perfect fit. Not only did it own a submarine cable that plugged Africa directly into Europe, but it also operated the region's most advanced data centers. It was, quite literally, buying the keys to West Africa's digital future. For Funke Opeke, this wasn't just about money. MainOne had spent over a decade pouring hundreds of millions into infrastructure, and she understood that to keep growing at the global scale, with competition coming from Google's Equinix cable and Meta's 2Africa cable, they needed deeper pockets. Equinix promised investment, global integration, and access to thousands of cloud and content partners. The deal officially closed on April 1, 2022, after regulatory approvals in Nigeria, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire. MainOne was rebranded as MainOne, an Equinix company. Equinix immediately pledged to invest over $50 million in expanding and upgrading MainOne's Lagos data center, MDXI Lekki, bringing it up to global standards and adding capacity for more than 1,000 racks. This action would lead to Africa's businesses being able to interconnect directly with Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Meta, and other giants through Equinix's global platform. It was a phenomenal turning point, seeing that what had begun as a Nigerian startup in 2010 had now become part of a $60 billion multinational network. Throughout this journey, the inherent challenges of doing business in Africa, power, currency, regulation and talent have remained real. Yet, despite them, MainOne has become the digital foundation of West Africa. MainOne, now fully integrated into Equinix, remains the most important interconnection hub in West Africa. Its Lekki data center has doubled in size, and expansions in Accra and Abidjan are ongoing. Equinix has also started investing in solar and hybrid power stations to cut reliance on diesel. Funke Opeke, though still a senior leader and advisor, has gradually stepped back from day-to-day operations since late 2023, allowing Equinix global executives to take a bigger role. Still, her legacy is undeniable. Funke Opeke didn't just connect Nigeria to the world, she connected a generation to possibility. She is the woman who took Nigeria from days of buffering internet to being plugged directly into the global cloud economy, and her story is proof that one person's vision can rewire the future of an entire continent.